Do you ever wonder about which mining company that's listed on the London Stock Exchange you should be having a look at? Well, Akshay asked me this question following one of my recent dividend stock videos, so I'm going to have a quick look at the two that were suggested, and the first one is Rio Tinto and the second is Anglo American. Rio Tinto and Anglo American are two of the largest mining companies in the world. Both got long histories in their sector, and they have been going for over 100 years and doing operations all across the world. What I'm going to cover off is a bit of an overview of the companies, have a bit of a look at their financial and operational performance, then touch on their ESG credentials, and some of them may put some people off. And if you want to hang around to the end, I'll tell you which one I'm invested into. Hi, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, hi, I'm Mark of Desperately Seeking Fi. Rio Tinto is the older of the two companies, founded in 1873, headquartered in London, hence why it's on the London Stock Exchange. Primarily focused on mining for iron ore, and this makes up about 55% of its operations. Also looking at things like aluminium, copper, and some diamonds. And Rio Tinto, as you can see on the map, is pretty worldwide, but predominantly looking at Australia, Canada, and into parts of Africa. Anglo American, on the other hand, slightly younger, and it was founded in 1917, also headquartered in London. Its primary focus is on diamonds, copper, and some of the platinum group metals, as well as things like nickel. They are branching out into hydrogen, looking at that net zero side of things. Anglo American based operations in places like South Africa, Chile, and Brazil. On the financial side of things, we'll do a little bit on income, we'll look at dividend yield, dividend growth rate, the CAGR, then we'll come to a quick conclusion on which one is potentially better. What does revenue look like? You will see from these charts that it is quite cyclical. It is up and down. If we look at revenues, Rio Tinto came out on top on this side of things with about 55.6 billion up to the year ending December 22, whereas Anglo American's revenue was more around that 35.1 billion. Rio Tinto had a higher net income at 12.4 compared to 4.5, and that gave better operating margins to Rio Tinto, looking at 22.4 compared to 12.9 for Anglo American. You'll see from these comparison charts on the dividend yield that both companies have cut their dividends in 2022, and I suppose one of the main reasons behind this is they had a bumper year in 21. They paid out huge special dividends, and that pushed up that year. Hence, they had no choice but to cut back on those dividend yields. That said, they are still coming in with pretty nice dividend yields. Rio coming in at 7.63 and Anglo American coming in at still a very decent 6.43. So neither of those are shabby dividends yields. And if we look particularly on that Rio Tinto chart, you see if you were to take 21 out as a bit of a blip year, you are still looking at a reasonably steady growth in that dividend yield. Both go ex-dividend in March and August. It's also not a surprise that this goes up and down, and that both companies sort of set a range that they are happy to pay out at somewhere between 40 and 60-ish payout ratios. In this past year, Rio's payout ratio has been 64%, whereas Anglo American has come in at about 53%. So that is a little bit over my aspiration to hit the 50% mark. I don't have any major concerns with that payout ratio. Next thing to have a look at is that 5-year average dividend growth rate, and we see Anglo American coming out on top with this metric. They come out at slightly higher, 14.19, but we've still got an 11.15 for Rio Tinto, so both reasonably high dividend growth rates. If we have a look at that 1-year chart, we are looking at Rio Tinto being substantially better off than Anglo American, even though they are both still showing red. And then over the 5-year, Anglo American is doing much better, and that gives us a 5-year CAGR of 6.8%, as opposed to Rio coming in at their 3.2%. There are a couple more metrics that I like to look at, and the first one is the debt to equity, and we end up having Rio comes out on top on this metric because it is running at about 29% debt to equity, whereas Anglo American is looking closer to that 42% mark. And then on earnings growth rate, we are looking at both of them being slightly in the minus, with Rio coming in at 3.9 as opposed to Anglo American coming in at 4.1% down. All in all, if we look at all of these metrics, I think you probably agree that there is a clear winner, with Rio Tinto coming in with much stronger financials. However, they are very cyclical, and it all depends on what is the commodity that is required to see who's going to actually benefit. So please do go and do your own research and due diligence. I know that ESG, so the environmental, social and governance practices of mining companies, really are front and centre in some people's decisions on whether to invest. It's very much similar to whether people want to invest into tobacco companies, for example. Both of these companies have had their trials and tribulations. They have had quite high profile cases. So in Rio Tinto's case, they have had allegations of destruction of Aboriginal sacred sites in Australia, whereas Anglo American have had accusations of major pollution to water systems in South Africa, and both creating air pollution. So do go away, have a quick look at what their ESG scores are like. There are several websites such as Morningstar that will be able to give you some further information on that. That said, they have got new ESG practices, and they are attempting to become more socially responsible companies, and that comes out through their website, so you can go and have a quick look at that. Hope you find that of some use, and I did say I would tell you which one I'm invested into, and it is Rio Tinto that I have a small holding in that I'm looking to build up slightly. Wondering, are you invested into either of these or any of the others? Because there are other major players in the market. There are the BHP type of stocks in Australia. Love to hear down below which ones you're invested into. Why don't you go and have a look at this video, which may give you some ideas of some other dividend stocks to go and have a look at. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.